Welcome to episode 171 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Peter Hooton and Keith Mullin from The Farm. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Guy Garvey from Elbow about their new album, Audio Vertigo. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. The Farm return with their first new music since the release of their last album, Hullabaloo, in 1994, with the singles Let the Music Take Control and Feel the Love. In this interview, Peter Hooton and Keith Mullin discuss the new songs and upcoming album. We also delve into the band's back catalogue and discuss the Farm's best songs, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Peter Hooton and Keith Mullin from The Farm. Hi Peter, hi Keith, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great to have you.
Pleasure.
Peter,
It's a pleasure.
The Farm are back with your first new music since Hullabaloo in 1994. You're planning on releasing tracks every 6 weeks, and so far you've released Feel the Love, which is brilliant, and Let the Music Take Control, which is amazing as well.
Yeah.
So why was it time to put out new music after all these years?
I think when we were playing live, we've never stopped really playing live since 2005 when the Happy Mondays asked us to reform. And the reason we played live again is because our guitarist, Steve, was diagnosed with bowel cancer. And I think when he was in the hospital and he thought that was it, we had wires all coming from him. He said, why didn't we play more? So when he recovered from it, he was the only person who said we shouldn't, reform or whatever, So we never actually split up. We just drifted apart and started families and did various things. So from 2005, when we did that Mondays tour, we've always been doing festivals, But I think over the last, a few years, we started writing stuff, me, Keith and Steve, and it was having the confidence really to release it. What we started doing was introducing some of the new songs at the festivals, and people were asking us, where can you get that new track? Going, we haven't got a record deal, so just throw it on Spotify, throw it on streaming platforms. Now, we've got a back catalogue deal with BMG Records, but that's for all the back catalogue, So it was mainly, I think, after Keith's health scare. Keith had a health scare. I think that made Keith determined, he has to speak for himself, but let's get this new stuff out, because it's going down great at festivals. So why not stick it on streaming platforms and see what happens? Is that right, Keith? Or?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It is that thing, as Peter's saying. We kind of sort of fallen back into writing together again. After some time after we kind of reformed and started gigging again, because we found the time to do it, and then certain things kind of got in the way. One I got. We'd started to we were just going to do some physical stuff in 2017, 18, and then we got to 2019, and I got throat cancer, basically. So that kind of just took me out of everything, because I lost my left-hand vocal cord and my false cord, and it took a year for me to learn how to speak again, And then the cancer came back, and so I had all these things to deal with I was dealing with that all through lockdown as well. So,
good job you don't do backing vocals anymore.
Yeah, I can't sing anymore. You know what I mean?
But you used to, didn't you? In the 80s, you used to do backing vocals.
I did used to do backing vocals because I could definitely hold a tune, but that was debatable, of course. Yeah, so we come through lockdown and come out of lockdown, and I've just been I made myself a Stephen Peter, and you're kind of sitting there listening to, and it is about confidence as well. It's about hearing people coming up to you after gigs saying, "Really love that new song you played there, and that song's great, they're going down well," and was playing them to other people, and you don't want to necessarily be seen as a band who's just coming out and putting out new music, and it's like you're kind of back and you're doing it, for some kind of last paycheck. We're not necessarily doing it for that. If the songs weren't any good, they wouldn't see the light of day. And so we've got to like them first, if you know what I mean. And that's primarily what's happened. And I just kind of thought, this needs to be out. So let's just go for the very. Let's not, worry about chart positions. Let's not worry about even trying to impress people in that way. Let's just put it out there for the people that like listening to our music. Because you're able to do that now. You can go and cut a very, very simple distribution deal with a digital distributor. We've done that with Ditto. Just kind of work something out with them and just do it yourself, which is like very much the way that the farm have always operated in a way. So we've been pushing that since last year. Decided to release something every 6 to 8 weeks. But the first tune, Fear the Love, did that well. We got Radio 2 playlisting with it and all kinds of things. So we've had to put things back, and we just put Let the Music out. We've been getting spot plays on Radio 2. We're getting spot plays on various other stations, and the reception to that Let the Music has been fantastic. So that's kind of like confirming in a way that actually there are people that like what we're doing, now, and so we're just in that process now of it's now becoming an album. Which will be hopefully out early next year. And we're just going to continue that process of dropping music like it's online, and people want to play it and like it. That's great,
Yeah, but we enjoy writing again, because I think when you have big hits and you've got to get a next album out and you're on tour all the time, there's a lot of pressure. And Steve especially was saying, he doesn't like pressure. He just likes to chill out and do his music. And then Keith comes in, contributes to that, and then I put lyrics to it, and melodies. But when it's like, you've got to have an album in 2 months, you can't work like that, So we've took a few decades off. Where's Blue Nile?
Well, I read that there's also songs "Moment in Time" and "Can't Stop Loving You." When can we hear those tracks?
We're kind of looking and discussing at the moment of probably putting Moment in Time out before the summer, and then
it's just a discussion on what we think should be the next one. We've got 6 tracks recorded. We're working on 2 or 3 more, and maybe one of the ones we're working on could be the next single if we think it's good. We just don't know yet, but hopefully, it'll be May, June, will it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the plan. I think 6 weeks has gone out the window a little bit, hasn't it? Because the response to them,
I mean, it's not that we've got the material there. I mean, we set up 4 singles to go, but they kind of, we've had to change. I mean, all good plans have to change. The best plans have to change. We kind of have to change some of the things that we're doing, basically, because of the response we're getting to it, and we're thinking, okay. And also, we're still writing, and there's other things propping up. We might think, actually, let's go with that one next. And I think that us doing it ourselves and doing that kind of independent, DIY route, it gives you that option, doesn't it? It gives you that choice to respond to what's actually taking place, and also to kind of do it in a way that you feel is right.
When it all started, we made the decisions ourselves, and it's back to that situation where we can do what we want, really. And with streaming platforms, obviously everyone knows about the problems with streaming platforms, the payment and the royalties and that. But streaming platforms are a great way of promoting yourself, and it's all about live music. We've noticed that since we've started releasing stuff, we're getting better. We're getting cooler festivals. Really, is that right, Keith?
Yeah, I'd say definitely impacts upon the gigs that you're offered, impacts upon the types of things that you're offered as well, and that's because we're putting new music out, and because there's a whole load of people out there that still don't even know what we're playing. I mean, we've done some interviews over the last 6 months, really. I've done interviews where, I've been asked questions about, about like they were completely unaware that we've been gigging for the last 5 years. We were gigging before COVID, and we were gigging after, and that's absolutely fine. But so I suppose having new music out puts you in that people's mind, doesn't it? In a very different way than you're just going out and gigging on a yearly basis to a particular audience.
The farm's music, always blends. You always blend various genres. So how would you describe the musical style and subject matter in the new music?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to write about things that meant something to me, you know. For example, Let the Music Take Control was just like, after you see politicians going on podiums and take back control and all, basically meaningless spin. You know, I just thought, when we saw Nile Rodgers came into Lipa where Keith works, and then we went to see him at the Echo Arena that night. It's called the M&S Arena now, but it was the Echo Arena back in the day. And it was like he was a prophet. And he was talking about he just got over cancer himself, you know. And he was talking about his love for the Beatles and his love for music and Liverpool's importance in that musical history, you know. And then everyone had the phones in the air with the lights on and all that. And I just thought, you know, he was like a prophet for music, you know, saying, let music take control, you know, forget the fucking, you know, the everyday life of meaningless politicians and political slogans, you know, because music unites people. And we've always been a group who's trying to unite people, you know. For example, All Together Now, Love See No Colour, you know. And maybe it was my obsession with West Side Story when I was a kid. Which is basically Romeo and Juliet in it. But it was, or the Bronx Tale. But so yeah, I think this is still fitting with that, you know, indication, because we don't like to be overly political because, you know, people get tired of that. I mean, I was a big fan of the Clash, and, you know, but I thought the Clash did it better than the Redskins, if you know what I mean. The Redskins were preaching, you know, whereas the Clash were writing songs which would make you learn about, you know, Nicaragua, or make you learn about what was going on, what happened in the Spanish Civil War, you know. And it wasn't, and Strummer's lyrics was able to do that, you know. So we never wanted to be a band that were like just preaching to people, you know. So a lot of people have listened to Fear the Love, and they just think, oh, it's about, but you know, it's about when we went to Ibiza, and we followed this DJ called DJ Harvey to a mountain, where he was like, literally, it was a hippie style commune, you know, no running water, no electricity, but they had a generator for the decks, you know. And we was pretty cynical, come from Liverpool, you know, took the piss out of everything, you know. And then we met this Harvey, and he was like, you know, man, you know, just let your feelings run wild. You know, it was like sunrise in Ibiza. It was an important moment. So Fear the Love is about that. Let the music take control. It's fairly political in a way, but I'd say in a subtle way. People can listen to All Together Now and don't really know what it's about. They think it's just about a family, you know, families getting together and all that. But, you know, it is about one of the most important events in war history, really, which was that Christmas truce, you know.
In following up on that as well, I did a podcast the other week, and I was talking, and they talked about All Now, and they were asking about, you know, the All Together Now, and I kind of recounted that story and what Peter had written about, you know, when the lyrics, and he said it started out as a poem and what it was about, and the three of us sat there, and they were like, well, we didn't know that, you know, and they've been punching the air to All Together Now for years, and they were just unfamiliar. And then when they went, oh God, it's obvious, isn't it? You know, when they kind of like, because they've been singing the lyrics, and sometimes people don't necessarily immediately make that connection with the tune, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. But in terms of the music, I mean, following off what Peter's saying about the kind of lyrical content, what the songs are actually about, you know, and from stylistically, from the music point of view, to answer that part, really, I mean, that's just about being influenced, not wanting to kind of fall into any kind of category, but just being, you know, kind of, they're not being afraid to reference some of those things that you've been influenced by in your life, and also some of the things that we're listening to now. I mean, as Peter's saying before, we're not really constrained by any rules. We can just do whatever we want. And because we're kind of at that age now where if you don't like it, we really don't care, you know. You know, we'd like you to like it, do you know what I mean? And it'd be great, but if it's not for you, fantastic. There's other stuff you can go and listen to. And so it's feeling comfortable with the styles and the types of things that we want to create, you know. And so musically, we're experimenting with all kinds of sounds and things at the moment, you know.
We've got something called Spotify for artists, so we know exactly who's listening to us, and it's you know, the figures, and there's 0% under 18.
And, yeah,
Well, you can imagine 30 to 50 is our main, group, and But obviously, we want to attract those under 18s. But we're not really active that much on TikTok, are we, Keith?
No.
A lot of our stuff gets took off TikTok, doesn't it, at the moment? Is that right?
Well, no, that's because our back catalog's been caught up with the Universal takedown. I've been in touch with BMG over that, saying you need to get the music back up. Honestly, I think we'd be perfect fodder for TikTok. In a weird type of way, but
and all you've got to do go walk around Liverpool going chicken,
yeah.
My uncles were in town, and there's this lad who goes around getting people to say chicken and chips, and it's had something like 6 million views. Just people saying chicken and chips.
I bumped into him the other week just before Christmas, and he called me.
Get him on to Fear the Love.
He said to me, "What am I having for Christmas dinner?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "What do you think? About different meats?" I said, "I'm not really eating meat at the moment." I said, "But I don't mind the occasional capon." And he said, "Yeah, capon, yeah." I think I was bored, and so I don't think I was interested enough for this TikTok account. So it never went up. There you go. But he's always wandering around. Yeah, I think we're perfect for TikTok, to be honest with you. But I just think it in an interesting, strange kind of way in terms of what everyone actually does individually. Because everyone in the farm has a successful career or is successful career-wise in other areas other than being in the farm. And I think that's what makes the band unique. Is that we're all very, very busy people. As well as being in the band, we have other careers.
So how do you find that? Making time for the band now and then your other careers. Is it hard to balance it all?
It's a balancing act, isn't it? I suppose that's why we not only do, but we're gigging certain times a year because Roy might be away making a film or a kind of film festival. Carl might be doing a documentary or something, or off working with one of the bands that he works with. Peter may well be writing a book, and Steve may well be.
I'm not writing any more books, I'm telling you. It takes over your life.
Yeah, Steve may be doing some orchestral music for some films. So I'm now an academic as well as other things too. So we're kind of all very kind of busy and doing other things. So finding the time is a bit of a balance in that, and obviously you've got to have a life as well. So that's
why festivals suit us so much, really. Because we can maybe do a festival on a Friday and Saturday, and then have the week off and do the next festivals the next weekend. And that suits us perfectly because when we do festivals, it's like a proper day trip, it's like our day out, where we plan which pub we're going to with real ale and got decent food and all that. And it's enjoyable. And if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do it.
And we're still at the age where we don't need a carer with us.
You're both doing the tours around Liverpool, the music tours. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I had the idea for it before COVID, really, And then when lockdown happened and all that, that's 4 years ago, wasn't it? To 23rd of March was the anniversary, 2020, wasn't it? So, I had the idea of it because I'd taken so many people around Liverpool, and that's the pub where, John Lennon used to go in, and that's the pub, McCartney liked, and just talking about music and people used to say, you should do this as a tour. But I never really thought much about it. But then during lockdown, when everyone's thinking people aren't going to get back out into society, I fashioned the tour then just for something to do, to keep me from being bored, I come up with the locations and all that, and it's all about anecdotes. So it's a unique tour in many respects because Keith does one, I do one, and Nasher from Frankie Goes to Hollywood does one. But they'll all be different. We'll have similar locations, not all exactly the same, but we'll have different anecdotes and we'll play different music at those. So it's really about the Beatles before they were famous. So when they were at art school and they were trying to basically get gigs, no one would take them on, and so it's about them, but it's also about how the Bunnymen formed, where they formed, groups like Deaf School, which are very important, and then going further on down to like place like Cream, which is just a mural on a wall now. There's no indication that one of the greatest nightclubs ever existed, And then we go to like the Matthew Street area, which is completely different from when the Cavern, original Cavern and Eric's were running, It's now like a bustling tourist hen night, stag night. I call it Dublin's revenge. These hen stag nights, because people went over to Dublin for years, didn't they, till they sort of like put two fingers up to the hen parties and stag nights. So they all come to Liverpool now, And obviously Matthew Street is is a magnet for them, But we're trying to change the culture of that because it's not that cool, It's when you got all these karaoke bars and people falling over and that, it's not what it should be because, some of the music that came out today in the 60s and the 70s, was the coolest music you could get. And now you've got, stag and hen parties staggering around, But that's just licensees who decided, like, that's what we want, But there's, I'm chair of the Beatles Legacy Group in the city, for the city council. And we've had all sorts of reports done, about how you can change the culture of that area. But the problem is, they're probably making so much money, the bars, with happy hour all day. I think Temple Bar changed it a bit, didn't they, by basically putting the prices up probably.
Big time.
Yeah,
If I go down to Dublin for a gig or whatever, I stay clear of Temple Bar.
Yeah. But it was even worse years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
the music tours are like people who've come on them always. The reviews on TripAdvisor are fantastic. They're all great reviews, but they all say, "I thought I knew about Liverpool music till I went on this tour." So we're doing the anecdotes that people haven't heard of really before. So that's.
So if anyone's listening, how did they get on the tour? Where did they go to book tickets?
Put Brit Music Tours, Brit Music Icon Tours, I think it is.
Yeah.
Into Google, and it should come up, and then you can choose Keith, me, or Nasha.
Who's the most popular?
I'd say we only did it last season, last summer, and I couldn't possibly comment on that. But it's probably Nasha. Nasha's now a non-religious. He did your mum's funeral, didn't he, Keith?
Yeah.
He's a non-religious. What did he call him? He's not a preacher, is he? Celibate. Yeah. So he's used to talking and giving great speeches and all that. So I mean, I'd like to go on Nash's myself in disguise.
Yeah. I know. I think the tours are really fascinating. Obviously we're all covering a generic subjects, and it is anecdote based. It is stuff there that you would not really find in books or find in anywhere else because they're quite personal. But it's also kind of looking at it. I mean, I took a bunch of academics out, who were from different universities, and I was discussing, how culture emerges and the conditions that need to be present in order for certain things to arise, and then discussing why that's specific to the Matthew Street area and specific to different areas, because I lecture a lot, so I'm kind of used to doing it. So I see it as street lecturing. I see what we do as a unique research. It is very ethnographic, I suppose, or autoethnographic kind of research, but it is, and you are looking at those kind of factors that need to be in place as well for culture to emerge in the way it does, coupled with a lot of personal type of anecdotes. And I think that's what makes it really interesting, different from everything else, Within that, you've got a different perspective and tale from each individual, which I think is fantastic,
I think what surprises people is then when we talk about the auditions that the early Beatles or the Silver Beatles, whatever they were called, went to, and Alan Williams, who was never the manager, but he was always their, helper. How he had a pecking order of Liverpool groups, and it was Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, Jerry Marsden, and then the Beatles were right down there. They were like the third or fourth to be asked to go to Hamburg. And it was like the of thinking what became the biggest group in the world, and probably still is, and biggest phenomenon. That the fact that they couldn't get on the on various tours. They went to audition for Billy Fiore's backing band, for Larry Parnes, who was the impresario who used to run a lot of artists, and he was looking for a backing band, and they got rejected. So it's stories like that interest me. And they got on the Johnny Gentle tour of Scotland. That was the first tour they ever did, and that people will do Beatles tours in Liverpool. Well, I don't think they'll go to the Blue Angel where that happened. Some of them might, but I think they'll just generally do the Cavern and Matthew Street and Beatles statues and things like that. So we're going for the quirky stuff, We
can also look at the mythology as well, because a lot of what attracts certain people to certain areas in Liverpool is myth, and mythology kind of plays just as an important role as fact sometimes in terms of that layers, that kind of layered history, and how people perceive it. And so we discussed that the idea of mythology, the idea of truth.
It's also about places. So, for example, the Cavern and Eric's were in an old fruit warehouse area, and they were basically derelict areas. It was the city centre, but they were derelict warehouses, and that's why clubs could thrive there, because no one else wanted them. And that's it being important in every scene in every city. That you get to, like, there's a big place in Liverpool now called the Baltic Market, which is full of, like, it's a similar thing. It was a warehouse area on the edge of the city, and Jane Casey, who was involved heavily in pink military and pink industry and all sorts of stuff in the pre-Eric's day and post-Eric's day, she was the catalyst for all that. So she saw the empty warehouse and space and thought this can be an art district similar to somewhere in New York or Amsterdam. And as soon as that becomes popular, you see, then the original people in that area have to move out because the rents go up, and they find another place to go to in the city.
I mean, even if you think about Matthew Street as well, even through the 70s and the 80s, the Matthew Street was a derelict area. It wasn't. It was just derelict. I mean, they knocked the Cavern down. You can learn about all this on the tour.
This is just a brief intro for anybody that wants to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's mainly people from outside the city come to it, because every time we have people like, I think the 15, the most people I have is 15. I think any more than that, and you're shouting too much, But I asked them where they come from, and they're from all around the place, and we've had even people coming from abroad. You've had Americans, haven't you, Keith?
Yeah.
And we had a lad from Italy last year, and he said, I saw the Justice Tonight band playing with the Stone Roses. He was a big Stone Roses fan. He said, I saw the Justice Tonight band playing in the San Siro. It was like a stadium next to the stadium, like a small theatre, and an amphitheatre. And he said, ever since then, I've been obsessed, And I said, yeah, but you come over for the football, have you? That's what I'm presuming. No, I've come over for this tour from Milan. So, and I thought, better check his bag for a gun.
The Farm have released 3 albums, and I'm going to mention each one. And when I mention each one, can you briefly tell me what immediately comes into your mind when I mention each one? So, obviously, we'll start off with Spartacus.
Pop music.
Do you want to know what comes into my mind?
Yeah.
Subbuteo.
Yeah, because it was all together now. The slave was a Subbuteo player, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or in a uniform.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Carl did a Second World War soldier with a machine gun. It's supposed to be the First World War, but we couldn't. We didn't have the heart to tell him he had the wrong war, But and also his graphics were very influenced by the Clash and the Undertones. I think the Undertones had used Subbuteo as well. I was a massive Subbuteo fan, so it all made sense. And when I seen the fellow, soldier, and no one's ever mentioned that. Yeah. So it was probably right not to mention it, you know.
Can you still get Scooby-Doo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's coming back big time. It's like vinyl.
Is it?
Yeah, it won't go away. It's just coming back with a vengeance. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that first record was huge. So you know, what do you think of when you sort of cast your mind back? Because it must have been a crazy time. And as you said earlier on, you it was all DIY.
Yeah, basically it was just loads of hits on it, you know, and so it was like it was an avalanche. You couldn't, you know, when we had a manager who was Kevin Sampson, and he was everything he touched and everyone he suggested was the perfect fit, you know. And we set up our own label with some mates' financial backer who had some money. It was one of the Moores family, actually, one of the grandsons of the Moores family. He was knocking around with a load of lads from Bootle. And he asked me one day, why do you think the farmer aren't famous or popular? And I just said, economics. No one's ever put any money into us to go into good studios, to get a plugger, to get press offices, to get adverts, to get good studios, you know. And he said, oh, I'll lend you the money then. And that's how it all started, you know. But Kevin and Suggs were originally involved as the blueprint, you know. And Kevin came up with all the people to the press that we should use, the pluggers that we should use. And they were all the right people. And, you know, we toured Spartacus in America and all around Europe for probably 18 months. But in the meantime, we were expected to do another album, which is difficult when you're touring all the time. And we had some fantastic tours. We toured America with Big Audio Dynamite, you know. And that was unbelievable, you know, because the Clash was still, you know, massive in America. So people were, you know, so they had that legacy. It was totally different to the legacy in the UK, who would say, oh, that was last decade, you know. People in America were, you know, if they're a Clash fan, they're always a Clash fan, and they go and see Big Audio, you know.
And there were some big hits on it, you know. Obviously, we mentioned All Together Now, you know, Groovy Train, and, you know, what do you, Keith, what do you remember about writing the guitar parts for Groovy Train? How did you come up with that?
Well, we were spending quite a bit of time during that period in kind of evolving our sound, I suppose, where we were looking at it, and I suppose the guitar is reflecting that. I was not necessarily, I mean, we were spending a lot of times in clubs, you know, a lot of our time working with, you know, listening to dance music. We kind of moved towards at the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, and we were not, you know, yes, we were coming out from an independent scene, but we were listening to a different style and type of music, and we were living through that moment when acid house was emerging, you know, when like our bands, and that just started seeping into everything that we do, and we began to work with DJs, and we started hanging around a lot in you know, various nightclubs and with various kind of people from that scene, and that was having a bigger impact upon what we were creating, and I suppose that was impacting upon the way I was playing at the time as well, because I'd started to, I mean, I love playing hooks, I love playing riffs, I love things that are canon-esque, whereas they will, you know, they will cycle, you know, and you can just sit in the groove on them, and I suppose that's something I do as a player, you know, and I'd like to think I do it okay, and so that particular hook came up as a reaction to that. Really, it was me trying to sound like something that I would hear in a club, rather than I would hear in a gig night. You know, when you go to an indie club and you're hearing the kind of guitar, I was trying to sound like that was something that would be appropriate in a nightclub. So it was intentional from that perspective. I was kind of more floating away in my own mind, kind of, if you kind of look at it like that, just immersed in that that kind of scene, I suppose, and that style of music, and trying to sound different to what a guitar would normally sound like, you know.
Yeah, there's some great riffs on the album. And again, going back to All Together Now, it's actually just occurred to me, you know, as far as I can remember, there's been 2 songs written about the same subject matter, which was your song and Paul McCartney wrote The Pipes of Peace. And you're both from Liverpool.
Yeah.
But your song seems to be more famous and has endured longer. And it's, you know, people still love it.
Yeah, it was originally called No Man's Land. And we did it in a PO session before Pipes of Peace was out, actually. So Pipe's piece didn't influence it at all, really. But when we changed it, so when it got to 1990, we slowed it down. The verses were slower, and we put it to Pachelbel's canon, because Steve had always wanted to use what he called the wool advert. There was an advert on the telly called the wool, for British wool or whatever. And it was Pachelbel's canon, But Brian Eno would use Pachelbel's canon as well. And it's being used. You can go onto Spotify with songs that have been influenced by Pachelbel's canon. So it just seemed to fit. And when we were playing it in a rehearsal room, Terry Farley, the DJ, but that's the next single. That's the next single. You just need a chorus. So we got the chorus by just rehearsing, and because we just come back from Ibiza, and like people being on the beach or up the mountains, and all together now just came as a concept. The united different people, different walks of life, different races, all came together for music. So that was the idea behind it.
Well, not mention the Everton version.
No.
Can't believe you've done that. Anyway,
one of many versions. Well, Keith's an Evertonian, so we sang it. We had we didn't play on it. That was session musicians,
right,
from London, and they just wanted permission to change the lyrics, really, But I said for a few weeks, no, and Keith, emotional blackmail, he had his kid in the background crying his eyes out. He's going to meet the players, and I did the last day of the cup for you, and it's payback time. And in the end, it's just
but also it was your dad, wasn't it? You went and asked your dad, and then your dad being a lifelong Liverpool fan and kind of being the person that he is, turned around and said, well, when you consider what the song's actually about, you'd be a hypocrite if you didn't let them use it,
Yeah, it's enemies meeting in the no man's land, But my dad also said to me when I was eating my cornflakes when we went to school, when Shaqiri resigned, he said, and Paisley got the job 2 weeks later, he went, he won't do anything. He hasn't got the personality, and I always remind him of that.
Your second album, your first for a major, Love See No Colour, which features, the first single was Rising Sun. It's probably one of my most favourite Farm songs. What do you remember about that period?
If you're going to go for one word, I'd say, well, 2 words: film music.
Yeah.
Steve was in his room in the studio, in a bedroom, and coming out with film music. That's what it was. It was pretty difficult to get lyrics to it, but I think some of the stuff on there, like Creepers, and there's some fantastic, but there was no. Spartacus was the hits. Love See No Colour was the film music, and no hits. Even though people might like certain versions of Love See No Colour, we never really got it to. It was released a year after altogether now, and we made a slip up with giving out free vinyl like we did with Spartacus. But you could do that with an album, but you couldn't do it with a single. We didn't know, so all our sales got, and it was the beginning of the tide going out in many respects, wasn't it, Keith? Sony signed us for like stupid money, but then they started influencing our decisions.
Yeah. I mean, as well. I mean, at the time there was like, I think Love See No Colour. I think there's some fantastic songs on that album, But I don't think I think we were all being pulled in different directions with that particular album, and we probably didn't gel on it the way we did with other albums, musically. But I also kind of think that that concept and I think the artwork's fantastic for that. But also, for me, you're talking about major label influences. There's about 3 or 4 different versions of Love See No Colour, and there wasn't really a definitive one that we would all really have.
The definitive one is the one we play live now, which is the best, isn't it? Sony tried to get it into like this, magic without any drums on. It was like a vision on it, but it was wrong.
Horrible, wasn't it? I mean, I remember we got when we went to do the video for Love See No Colour, and they spent a load of money on it. I remember us all sitting there dressed as cardinals. The producer goes, we're all sitting dressed as cardinals. We just finished the tour. we were all tired. We were doing this video at the end of the tour on our way home from after the tour. No one wanted to be there. And we're all sitting there dressed as these cardinals with these kids flying around on ropes with wings on the back and angels. And we're all sitting there thinking, what's this got to do with the song?
It's just gone crazy, you know.
None of this has got anything to do with the song. And I always remember Steve Grimes looking at me, just looking up at me, just as this cardinal kneeling down the floor, just shaking his head as if to say, what the fucking hell's going on? You know, and I think sometimes that you know, you can look back at that now and laugh about it. You know, I think, you know, Love Seen Colours is a fantastic song. There's some great tunes on that, but I think we probably weren't gelling as well as what we could as people and as a band, and we probably got a bit lost. And that video shoot kind of sums it up for me, you know, when the influence of the major, and you want majors involved in what you do sometimes, you know, it's great, but I just don't think they kind of got up, understood what we were about. I think we saw the sales and what we've done with Spartacus and just wanted the market share, you know, and we probably didn't realise that at the time. I mean, that's one theory, I suppose, you know, when kind of looking back, and you can always, you know, you've always got the benefit of hindsight when you look at these things. But I suppose I sometimes have to look back and think of it in that way, you know.
Mine was on there when I was just looking to track list.
Yeah, mine's
on there, and that goes down great. Been a Long Time was a song that Mick Jones wrote for us.
Yeah.
And he went, "You've inspired me," and he came up to the Royal Court to play with us and went, "You've inspired me, and I've written the song, It's been a long time." So a member of the Clash is writing a song for us in tribute to us. It was like, you know, it was unbelievable. And I said to him, "Well, what about the..." He said, "No, it's a gift. It's a gift from me to you." You know, and off Mick Jones and the Clash, it was unbelievable. Susie Boo
as well, yeah.
Tooth Fairy, News International, but they were all very thematic, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like
News International.
Tooth Fairy, News International, and they could all be in films, you know.
Yeah. I still listen to News International now. It just kind of reminds me of like some kind of a 70s kind of Russian artwork, you know what I mean? It's true, got that kind of classical kind of Russian composer type vibe going on with it, you know. And so I think News International is great, but also the subject matter for News International, which is literally about, you know, News International.
It's about Murdoch, yeah.
Yeah, about Murdoch, you know.
Today, you know.
Then Dr. Farmer singing about Murdoch, and Peter was writing lyrics about Rupert Murdoch and News International and about their influence on society and politics back in 1992. You know, so we knew then, I suppose, what was going on. So I think, you know, for that particular album, there were a lot of real amazing things going on with it, and whether or not it was kind of, and there's some things about it as well that, you know, we were kind of, I suppose, it would come back as memories that
we thought, you know, at the time we thought we were doing our Sgt. Pepper, didn't we? At the time,
yeah,
that's how much we like lost touch with reality, you know. And we listened to it and it's going, it's great, but I think someone from Sony went, "There's no hits on it, lads."
It's just film music.
Rising Sun is a great single. It's my favourite track off the album.
It was, you know, I like that, but it didn't seem to damage the charts, did it? You know, but I think the tide was going out anyway, because I always remember we'd sold out every gig for like about 2 years with SJM, Simon Moran Promotions. And then we went to Newcastle, and there was a gig in Newcastle which hadn't sold out. And I said to Simon, "What's going on?" He went, "There's this band that playing the university tonight from America. They're called Nirvana." And that was the first time we hadn't sold out, because, you know, a lot of the people were going to see Nirvana, you know. And we'd heard Nirvana when we were touring with Big Audio in America. But we didn't know that the music press were going to champion a scene called grunge, you know, and we're going to basically say everything that went on from 89 to 91, that's yesterday, you know. And I think that was important as well in terms of changing attitudes in the music press, and they were happy with white guitar bands coming back, you know, whereas we were experimenting with sounds, with loads of hip hoppy sounds, and you know, we were using lots of Sam Severs, who's a great hip hop artist from New York. He'd work with Third Bass, and he'd work with various, and a lot of our rhythm tracks on Spartacus were borrowed off Sam. And when we were on tour in America, he was in the group called Downtown Science. So we was at one of the sound checks, and he came up. He said, "I recognise some of them beats." And I said to him, "All right, Sam, yeah. How much do we owe you?" And he went, "No, man, I'm flattered. You know, it's."
Your last album, 1994, Hullabaloo. I think in fact, you're also on a different label. You signed to Sire for this album. I think it's a very underrated album. What can you remember about it?
Just that everything started. Seymour Stein was a big champion of the farm, you see. He said, I want to release. We were already on Sire for Spartacus and but he wanted. He had confidence in us to write songs, so he said, "I'll fund the next album." But it was only ever going to be released in America. I don't think it was ever released over here by a label, you know. So we went back to songwriting instead of film music. We went back to songs with structures, you know. And yeah, I think there's some great tracks on there, you know.
Comfort, I love Comfort.
Comfort's great, you know, like almost like country and westernish, isn't it? And Comfort, Man Who Cried. That was influenced by a documentary I saw at the time about the American Civil War, you know, and that's why that came on. What other tracks on there?
Messiah starts off with Messiah.
Messiah. Oh yeah, that was about Waco with David Koresh. That was all, you know, and I think that's that stands up test of time, you know, but. In terms of what we were trying to do, we were going on tour in America, and we were thinking of, you know, what might be, you know, what song we were got to get back to songs basically. Yeah, and that's what we did. You know, we got back to songs, and yeah, I think it's I like listening to it. You know,
yeah, it's a great album.
Messiah's a hit in it, you know what I mean, and like, you know, Comfort's what a fantastic tune, and you know, Man Who Cried. I mean, there's some I think there's some great. I think that album feels like there's a lot more relaxed to me. I suppose we're probably feeling the pressure was off again at that particular album as well. But there's some great ideas and songs. And, you know, All American World, fantastic. You know, it really is a really in your face kind of anxious kind of punk song. You know, and we started to kind of experiment in that way, you know, which is good.
So why was that the last album? What happened?
I think we got disillusioned with music in general, and we did. Our last gig was in Dublin, I think it was, for the Roy's Stag Night. Everyone was either getting married or having kids, and you know, and we went on a stag night for Roy. But we decided to throw a gig in as well in Dublin. And that was the last gig I think we did until, you know, 10 years later. And we just drifted apart. We didn't announce anything that, you know, we were splitting up. And we were still in touch with each other and still doing various bits and bobs together, but not playing live. And it wasn't until, as I said before, Steve had that, thought he was like, you know, it was the end of his days, that he thought, why didn't we play more? We should have played more, you know.
Yeah.
That was the motivation to get back together, you know.
If people want to understand the Farm's music, what are the 5 songs they should listen to?
Oh God!
Oh my God! Yeah.
You can have 5 between you or 5 each.
The next 5 that you'll haven't heard. No, I'd say okay. Let's see. I mean, definitely, I'd say Fear the Love. Love See No Colour, All Together Now, Same Old Story. I mean, is that 4?
Yeah.
And Groovy Train, probably.
Come on, what, sorry?
If you've got to pick 5 tracks.
It'd probably be similar tracks, really, to be honest with you. You know, I definitely think Fear the Love. I definitely think All Together Now, Groovy Train, News International, and Messiah.
Great choices. So what's left on the musical bucket list for the Farm? You know, what ambitions do you have going forward?
Ambition? I mean, we've never been that ambitious, really. I mean, I know it sounds mad being in a band and that, but we just let things happen. And I think now we're at that stage where it's similar to when before Spartacus, you know, there's no real pressure on you. We can, if we don't want to release another single in a few weeks, we don't have to, you know. So I think it's just enjoying music. I mean, you know, we're musicians, we're a working group, you know, and hopefully people like the music, you know, and you know, and get something from the music, get a message from the music, a message of, like, you know, solidarity and unity of ordinary people. You know, forget, you know, countries and borders right out of sight, you know. It's about people, you know, and most people have more in common with each other than they have, you know, opposed to each other. So I think it's a message of unity, really, you know, and without being too preachy, if you know what I mean.
I think as well, really. I mean, I think we're just enjoying it at the moment, you know, and I think that's really important for me. It definitely feels like we've been in a band for, you know, I teach in university, and I've been in a band for longer than most of the people I teach have been alive, you know, and that's in and out of a band, and I think that's some achievement. And I think we're one of the very few bands that we all actually really still get on with each other, you know, and we like being in each other's company, and I really enjoy playing live, and we all kind of really enjoy the live music experience. And so we're kind of at that point where we all continue to write, and we don't. It's not like we stop writing; we all stop writing. So having that opportunity to still put your ideas out there in the public domain and get a response to them is a big thing, you know.
The reactions to these first two singles been amazing, really, because, you know, when you go to, you know, when we played that Manchester Music Feeds gig of the week, you know, all these different artists going, "Oh, I heard that on the radio, it sounds brilliant." Yeah. You know, a few months ago, I had Suggs ring us up out the blue. I hadn't heard from him for a while, you know, and he said, "I've heard that new single on the radio." I said, "It's fucking brilliant," you know. And then Paul Weller's heard the two new singles, and he said, "Are you gonna do an album?" And I think Carl said to him, "Well, we haven't got a record company at the moment, and we haven't got, you know." He said, "Come down to my studio." Or it won't, you know. So Paul Weller, like, so all these people are still willing to farm on. I think they see us as, like, you know, almost like the last gang in town type of thing, you know, holding the banner of, you know, of going forward. So the fact that Weller's asked us to do that, you know, and the fact that he's heard them, you know, means a lot to us. Like, because, you know, we grew up, you know, idolising the Jam, you know, and Star Council.
Well, great. I can't wait to hear the album. Hopefully next year, you say, possibly it's coming out?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, that's me done.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Absolutely loved talking to you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All the best. You know.
Right.
See ya.
Right.